Hello, what's up guys? My name is Amanda. Welcome back to my channel. There's no more ice in my iced coffee. And today I made a little brown sugar cold foam to spice up my day old black iced coffee. So today we're gonna go over some plant myths and whether I do them, whether you should do them. I mean, who really cares if you do them or not? But whether you consider these controversial or not, that's up to you. So these controversial, unpopular plant myths, opinions, whatever you want to call it, it's gonna be a two-parter because I don't want to make it super long. Okay, a big one that I see all the time, misting, just with a regular old spray bottle. Misting your plants to increase humidity. I'm sure you've seen this a bajillion times. I've seen it a bajillion times. I still see people recommending this as a way to increase humidity. In order to increase humidity wherever your plants are, whether you have a little room like I do, or your living room or whatever, you need to have consistent moisture in the air. Now, giving your plants a quick spray will increase humidity for what, 2 seconds, a couple minutes max. You're providing some very little moisture to the air, but not for long enough for it to be consistent to raise humidity levels over time. So to me, it's a waste of time. I'm not gonna sit there and mist all my plants. Now, I know some people mist their plants because they find it therapeutic or aesthetically pleasing, or they swear it works. So if you like to mist your plants, continue to do so. But I have read a bit about over misting. So over misting, and this is obviously on the more dramatic side of over misting, can be bad. Too much of anything can be bad, of course, but over misting, especially if you're directly misting your plant's leaves and soil, the soil especially, you could increase your chances of fungus gnats, and nobody likes fungus gnats. I've even seen some people say that they started to have white mold issues, like a little bit of white fuzzy mold that's usually not detrimental to the plant, but usually you're having problems with this white fuzzy mold just because the soil is staying too moist. And with fungus gnats, your soil staying too moist for too long, then you get fungus gnats, and they're not fun. They're not really gonna kill your plant per se, but no one likes to deal with them. They're annoying. I've also even read about people misting their leaves because they like the way it looks. They think it's beneficial, and those same leaves on those plants are having direct sunlight or indirect bright sunlight, and because there's water all over those leaves, they are then getting burned from that sunlight. So be careful, especially with sensitive plants. Over misting can be bad. An alternative to misting that will save you time and is way more practical and beneficial. Number one, investing in a humidifier. They don't have to be very expensive. You could get a smaller one to a very large one like the one I now have, and that will 100% increase the humidity wherever you put it. Now, if you don't want a humidifier, which for me, I didn't want one for a while, but they're good for your body as well, so you might as well, or you can't really afford to invest in one right now, whatever the reason, a pebble tray is the next best thing. I mean, even pebble trays, it's still hard to measure how much it really increases the humidity of the room, but it is like a one step above misting. Now you just grab a terracotta or one of those plastic trays, fill it up with some pebbles, little rocks, gravel, whatever you can find, fill it up with a little bit of water, and you can either place those around your plants, or you could place a pot directly on top of that tray. You don't want to put so much water that you're pretty much bottom watering your plant, just enough so it barely sits on the surface. The one thing I will say with this is it can attract fungus gnats, and you do have to remember to refill them, especially if you use a terracotta tray. It'll dry out a lot faster, so I recommend using those plastic ones if you can, or ceramic. Here's another big one that for some reason really, it doesn't grind my gears when I hear it, but it's the one that I think is hardest to change people's minds on, is that plants will increase the air quality in your home. So no. The amount of plants you would need to have in your home to make a difference in your air quality is insane. Like, you would need hundreds and hundreds of plants. And I feel like this myth got passed around and believed a lot more with that NASA study that came out. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. I've seen it still today circulating all over the internet. I think it was 1989 when it came out. So NASA did a study that proved plants increased oxygen, removed pollutants from the air, filtered the air quality, all that good stuff. So they released this and everyone was like, put plants everywhere in your home if you want to have better air quality in your home, which I'm 100% on board on putting plants everywhere in your home, but it's not going to increase your quality. So that study, they did it in an airtight vacuumed space. Our homes are not airtight vacuumed spaces, so it's not really the same thing. And another statement that isn't as talked about as that NASA study is one that was released by the US EPA, and that was in 1992, I believe, that pretty much said in order to achieve those pollutants removed in that study in your home, you would need around like 600 plants in your home. And we're talking like a normal sized home. Who's gonna have that many plants in their home? Like it's unrealistic. So even those people that have 100 plus plants in their home, you're not really improving the air quality. And it's a great idea, concept, like I would love it if that was true, but it's not. So if I have to see one more Facebook article that's recommending putting plants in your bedroom or anywhere in your home in order to achieve cleaner air in your home, especially as a remedy to being sick, to put houseplants in your home to clean your air so you're less sick. So another big one that I think is very common, I used to believe this and I used to do this and I used to tell other people to do this. I remember I even held one of those like sip and paint nights, but it wasn't a paint night, it was a sip and build a terrarium night thing at a bar in my hometown, and we had those glass bowls and I said to do this in the class that I taught. The idea that putting pebbles or gravel at the bottom of a pot that has no drainage hole is going to increase drainage. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I still see people recommending this, although not as often as like the misting or the clean air thing, but nevertheless, I still see this recommended as a way to increase drainage in containers that don't have drainage holes. It's gonna create a false bottom. And what I mean by false bottom is you have a set amount of space in your pot, right? And then you add, usually it's like a 1 to 1.5 inches of pebbles. That's usually the recommendations I see, and that's the same recommendation I used to give. And then throw in your medium, your soil, whatever you use. So you're cutting down the space you have in your pot. So that means less space for soil, less space for the roots, and less water the pot can hold because you have less soil and less space. But a lot of people don't think about that part. They would water it and fill it up the same as they would if the whole thing was filled with the plant root ball and the soil, and the water just sits at the bottom. The water still has nowhere to go if you don't have drainage holes. The roots are still gonna go make their way through the spaces of the pebbles, and the water's still gonna be sitting there. You still have the same chances of giving your plant root rot. Instead of throwing pebbles or gravel at the bottom of your pot to increase your drainage, here are some better options. Number one, the most important, is get a better draining soil. You want nice little air pockets in your soil, in your medium that you use, and you want good drainage. That's gonna be your number one fix all. You could totally get away with a pot with no drainage holes as long as you have a balm soil, and of course you know not to overwater. Number two is drill some holes in your pots. And if you don't want to do this, if you don't have the materials, if you don't want to risk breaking a pot, too much work for you, just keep the pot that your plant comes in, your nursery pot, your cache pot is what people call it, and just put that in your nice ceramic or terracotta pot, whatever you use. That way you know it's being drained properly and it still looks nice in your pot. Speaking of ways to actually increase the drainage of your plant, my last myth, unpopular opinion, whatever we're gonna call it for this video, is the idea that your plants must have drainage holes. Now, I am, for the most part, a firm believer that most people need drainage holes in their pots. In any of my videos, whether it be on YouTube or Instagram, you have more than likely heard me talk about having a pot with drainage holes. And I was super strict on always having drainage holes in my pot when I first was getting into plants many years ago. People can get by without having drainage holes in their pots. Sometimes I see people post about being 100%, you're messing up if you don't have your plant in a pot with drainage holes, you're gonna kill that plant if you don't have drainage holes in your pot. And yes and no. If you're first starting out having plants, 100% recommend using a pot with drainage holes or a cache pot like I mentioned earlier, only because it's easier to gauge your watering, especially when you're not familiar with plants and how much to water them and when's enough and all that stuff. So it's definitely easier because you could literally tell when the water is draining. But if you feel like you are on top of your watering, you know how much to water, when your plant needs it, all that stuff, and you don't feel like drilling holes in your drainage pot, or you don't want to use a cache pot, whatever your reason be, then just plant in it. I have a couple pots now in my collection that don't have drainage holes and the plant has never come close to dying in there, but also I am pretty familiar with that plant and its watering needs. So I can't really say that this is a full-on myth or that I don't agree with it, because I do agree with it to an extent. Like I said in the beginning of this video, people are gonna do what they want. There's no one way to care for your plants. People do it differently everywhere, and something that works for me might not work for someone else. A lot of people that don't agree with the way you're doing it are gonna say you're doing it wrong, you're gonna kill your plant, blah, 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 blah. And yes, some of it you might be. There are some tips I've seen out there that are like, you might literally kill your plant trying to throw all those weird condiments in your soil or on the leaves or to use to water your plant, whatever. I'm sure some of you have seen some of the weird like TikTok suggestions out there, but just find what works for you. And yeah, if you have any plant tips or suggestions or controversial things, myths that you've heard or you believe or you want in the next video, or even a part 3 if we have a part 3, comment. More than willing to do a little bit of research on them, give you my opinion. Not that my opinion really matters in this sea of opinions, but it's just fun to talk about stuff. So I'll see you guys in my next video, whether it be the part 2 or a different video. And I hope you guys have a good day or night, and follow me on Instagram maybe if you want.